So this is scion time. It is mid-April, warmer than average day for April, about 75 degrees, and it's tax day, April 15th, but it's a Saturday, so they don't take our taxes till Monday. So I'm going to be doing grafting apple trees. This is a failed graft from a couple years ago, but the root is still alive, and it sprouted this stem from the root stalk of the original wild apple tree. So we're going to be grafting onto this, a different technique than grafting onto a larger stump like that. So you can either get scions from nearby. I purchase mine when I want a specific variety. This is Honeycrisp. They come in the mail like this. I've sort of unwrapped it, but they just keep the roots moist, and you keep them either in the refrigerator or a cold space until you're ready to actually graft them. So actually I've never done this technique. I've practiced it but never done it in the field. But the important thing is to find a scion about the same diameter. So almost any of these will work. That'll be a smaller one, then I can use more of the stem. So, and then try to keep the rest of them as moist as we can. So really, these scions are much more than we need. Normally you only need 2 or 3 buds, because it's really just to make sure that at least one of them is going to actually grow. So you could actually probably have this scion and use it 3 or 4 times. But I won't do that. So I'll go down here a bit further, just because way up here it's just going to be a little bit too flimsy. So we want an angle cut like this, which is like that. And then what we do is, once we have a decent match, you go sort of in the middle of this and just make a little slit like that. And then the same here. And then that will lock the two together, as long as I did it correctly. Here, so you can see they're stuck. So they're stuck together. But then there's 2 things. One is you want to keep them tight together, because we need to, the cambium layer, or the little capillaries that the sap goes up and down, they need to be able to sort of join one another. And the other thing is we can't have it dry out. So the elastic is to keep them tight. That's what I'm trying to do. I need 3 hands. I'll try to go from the bottom up. There. So we'll leave this on really just for a couple months. This is mid-April, probably the end of June or sometime in July. I'll take these off, because by then they should have established their sap transportation, if you will, and a scab will have formed around the joint. So we hope that is good inside. Then the last thing we do, which is to sort of not only help keep it together, but make sure the moisture stays in, and the cuts that we made are not a way for moisture to leak out or for it to dry out is just wrap it with this cellophane, I guess, almost like saran wrap. And if you go from the bottom up, then it sort of acts like shingles on a roof. The water should shed off. I don't know if there's much of an issue with bacteria problems or viruses or anything getting in. Not heard of that, but so hopefully that plastic just sticks on itself. And that is it. So one thing that we learned after the first year we did this is the deer apparently like fresh apple buds. So that's why we put the fence around this, so that the deer can't get to it. We had good luck with this before, in that the ones we did last year did not seem to be bothered by the deer. So this is one from last year that did not work. These are the Scions, and you can see, and we'll do some of this in a bit, but the Scions you put on the very edge so that the cambium will take, but obviously this one didn't, and you can see the plastic wrap. And this wax is used to, again, prevent drying out from that. So normally if it did take, then a couple months later you take this and unwrap it. This particular stump did not grow any new stems, so I'm assuming the root is dead. It is in a sort of a marshy, wet area right there where the dog happens to lay. So I'm guessing that's probably didn't help the tree either. But it was a live, thriving tree a couple of years ago. But maybe the stress of having it cut like we did it in. So let's go find another one. So this is actually a successful one I did last year. And I should probably explain, the idea of grafting is use rootstock, or you can use an existing tree. And the variety of the fruit, it depends on the scion that you use. It does not depend on the root. So this is you can use any fruit tree, either existing or any existing rootstock, and graft whatever variety of apple or pear, plum you want on it. So I've had a couple good successes. We'll look at them from last year. You can see the scar tissue has grown. It's starting to grow around here. Again, this was just last year. This was the original scion, and this was the bud that took off. So there's several new buds. So what we could do, I'm not going to this year, but what you can do a couple things. You can put a different variety on a different branch, or we could just cut these off and then funnel all the energy of this existing tree stem to this stalk here, the stem. Now I will cut those off. So we have lots of wild apple trees, so that's why that method that I used back there, the first one we did, I haven't done before, because I've used existing trees rather than rootstock, which normally would be a single stem like that, a small stem. So this tree has 2 attempts. One was 2 years ago, unsuccessful attempt. This is where this one started to, you can see the scar tissue was starting to grow. This one it had budded out, and before we put this fence up, it appeared as though deer or some other animal chewed the buds and killed the graft. But last year I did this one, and I did 2 of them, 2 stems, you know, one on each side, to catch the cambium layer. And these were very successful. That's the original scion there, the original scion there. So this was all new growth last year. And I think I was just asking my wife, I think these are Macintosh, and in another field we did Cortlands, and the ones we're doing this year are Honeycrisp. So same story with this particular wild apple tree. We're just going to leave it as is. This is a busted branch, I'll cut that off, but we'll probably just let this go. Eventually, at least from what I'm told, even though I've grafted 2 successful stems, one will get cut off. You choose the best growing one and leave it as the main stem of the tree and remove the other one. So another one of last year's successes. Interesting. So I had 3 that took really well. You can see it's still a bit shaky. They're not fastened very well to the tree, even though they have some scar tissue there. So normally you'd pick the best one and let it grow, but because this is a little bit shaky, I'm going to leave it be. And the only thing I'm going to do is clip off the root stems that have started to grow, because these, if you let them grow, they would be the variety of the original tree, not of the new stem or new scion. So this one's all cleaned up. The cage we had around it was very tight to it, so it looked as though the deer might have stuck their nose through the openings, particularly that one there, and chewed on them. But there's still some good buds that'll come out this spring. But it's a much larger diameter now with the fence. Hopefully that keeps any critters out. And we do have another wild apple tree here, which I'm sure has a good root system that we are going to use. So with this one, we still have to concentrate on the cambium, because all the sap runs up and down the tree really from the outside. We find a decent place. So the scions, even though they come wetted, the ends tend to dry out. So I'll go up a couple inches. And here, you just make a wedge or a point. Try to be somewhat symmetrical. And have the edges parallel. Now what we need to do is spread this open. We can stick that in. And just the force of the tree squeezing together will keep that in place. So the only thing we need to do now is put some wax around the joint here so that it doesn't dry out. And boy, in this warm weather, this, well, wax or putty, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's called grafting. Putty. Grafting wax. And that split that I made again so it doesn't dry out. Okay, so we're not done with this tree. I'll probably do 3. So I'll get another scion. We'll do the same thing here and here. Yep. It's in there. A little bit of wax, putty, Play-Doh, green stuff. Since this has this scar over here, I think I'll do it right here. This little lobe appears to be cleaner. The last thing we do is wrap it with plastic. Again, this is not to keep them tight in there, because they're already pretty tight, but just those splits that I made to make sure that they don't dry out. Even though they have wax on, this will help. What I found is that particularly the trees that I have left a branch on and grafted to a branch that I cut off, is that the native tree will bud out a little bit sooner than the grafted ones will. I don't know if that's because they've been dormant longer, you know, in shipping and keeping them in the refrigerator, or what it is, but so the trees around may bud out before these will, but hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks we'll see some activity of the buds swelling. So this one is done, all enclosed. I don't know if you noticed it, but this one, I wasn't paying attention and I actually put it in upside down. Normally you do it so the buds are pointing up as they would naturally. We'll see what happens. Maybe the buds will come down and do a U-turn and head up. We'll see. So here's another pair of wild apples, a bit younger than the other ones we just did. But this one I'm going to do something different, just for fun. We'll just cut it up here. Granted, that means that we're going to have to tend more to these natural sprouts from the original root that'll come up. But it'll be interesting. It'll be a taller stem to start with. So because this one is a bit smaller in diameter, we're able to just cut the entire diameter, or split it I should say. So this one, we have to actually have them both in there. This one I'm going to remember to do the right end. So we'll take it down here a couple inches from the bottom. It's nice green wet wood. snug everything up since the tree itself is a bit smaller than those other ones. Alright, so this is the third location and the fifth tree, because here were two, the last one was two, and the first one was just that one single stem. So there's a couple more wild trees up that way. Meet you there. So this one was sort of medium sized, but I was still able to split across it. It seemed like a healthy tree, but it does have some scarring. I probably hit it with the bush hog there on the side. But it should be fine, we'll see. A couple more over there by the four-wheeler. So a couple more done. It's sort of a medium-sized one. And this one here, I decided to leave a branch on the original tree, so we can just let that continue to grow as wild apples, whatever they happen to be, or we can cut that off later and graft it again. And then there's that graft. So put fencing around these two and off to the next one or two to finish the Scions out. So this one was by far my most successful or most rapidly growing Scion. The Scion height is right there. That's where the original Scion was. And it grew probably 3 feet last year. Still some leaves on there. So this one is probably grow beyond the height of the deer this year. This one only had one Scion. Normally I'd put 2 there, even though it's a relatively small diameter. So this is the last one that we're going to look at here before I wait some time before the leaves bud out. So these are both live. They both look good and they both should bud out this spring. Obviously I left the rest of the tree on to figure out what we'll do later, which is just cut it off and let it go, or graft something else on later, but probably I'll save that for another year. This one does have a little bit of shade. Some of those hardwoods over there, red maples, I'll probably take down and just let that fir grow. So we'll meet back here again in several weeks to see how things are budding out and what the leaves look like. So it's been about 3 months since I did the Scions. We did them in mid-April. Now it's mid-July. I think that's 3 months. May, June, July. Yep, 3 months. So I think I did 6 tree grafts. Some of them had 2 grafts per tree or even more. But basically 6. And I had success on 2 of them. So right now I'm batting .330. Some successes, some failures, more failures than successes, so I'll go over them. This is one of my successes, and this is the first one we did, and the first one I have done. I may not be able to do this with one hand, but I want to take this off. It's the plastic. I can't do it with one hand. So this is the one that has a unique way, at least to me, because I hadn't done it before, where you're grafting similar diameter stems, Scions, to the rootstock. So Scion, rootstock, and the graft is right there. You can see here it's taken off really well. It's very healthy. If I had thought to bring out clippers, I'd clip these branches off to give all the energy to that main stem, but I didn't. But so let's go look at some less than successful ones, and some from the previous year. So this, I think, is the 3rd year that I've done this. The first year I had successes, but I think deer ate the buds late in the spring, midsummer, which is why I put the fence around it now. I'm not positive of that, but it looked that way. So the first year ended up having 0 success. The second year I had some success, very good success actually, probably like 75% success rate. But I had one thing happen, and I'll show you in a bit, which is one of the ones that I did 2 years ago looked really good last year, was very promising early part of this year, and then they all, I think 3 of the Scions died. So this is one that I did a year ago, a year and a couple months ago. This looks pretty good. I mean, it's not super healthy looking, but you can see the scab here is really starting to take hold. The leaves are pretty good. This was the original Scion, and then this is the bud that started to grow. I need to trim this back. I'd like to be able to take this fence out. You can see the host tree is actually growing some apples this year. I don't know, I mixed whether I want to cut this off right away or maybe cut one of these off and then leave another one as a potential graft location should this one fail. So without the GoPro in my hand, I took the fence off and removed the plastic and elastic. But boy, that really looks good. I mean, it blends in there almost like they belong together. Hopefully this thing is focusing close up. This is a bud that was trying to grow underneath there from the rootstock that I just rubbed off. Boy, look at that. That looks like a nice... Boy, if I was a plastic surgeon, I'd be proud of myself. Well, let's hope that one continues to grow like that until it produces fruit. I'm told maybe 4 or 5 years before they'll actually produce fruit with an established root system as opposed to using rootstock. All right, on to the next one. So this was one of the first ones I did 2 years ago, which was this graft, and you can see it started to scab over. This was the stem. It was really going strong, and then I think something chewed it off. I'll probably cut this off at some point. So these I did last year, so these are just over a year old. Lots of scar tissue healing there. This is the original Scion. This is the growth last year, and the growth this year is basically thumb to pinky right there. So both of these are doing well. Based on the growth, I will probably cut this one off and then let that one grow. Again, the same dilemma. What do I do with the rest of the tree? Do I thank it, cut them all off, you know, be thankful for the root system? Not sure. This is one of the failures, a large tree, which this still has some indication that there's, I mean, that is actually greenish. I'm going to let it sit there. I have read online that sometimes they can take several months before they actually take. As long as it's not dried and withered, I'm not going to worry about it. Hope for the best. This is that odd one. So I did 3. This is the original Scion. It grew that much last year. Early this year, it budded out, looked like it was going to do really well, and then they just died off. Leaves are out and everything. The leaves shriveled up, dried, fell off. This is my rock star. This has turned out to be tremendously good. Here was, hopefully you can see in there, past the grass. That's where I cut the original tree off. That was the graft from last year. Look at the growth on this, how big that was. This was the size of a pencil. Now it's the size of something bigger than a pencil. So the original Scion was there. This is the growth from here to here. That growth was like 3 feet last year, and look at it taking off this year. I've already got at least a foot of growth here in 2 or 3 months that this has budded out. Again, I should trim these branches off to give the energy to the tree, and then at some point let it branch out. I really am not versed at all in how to prune a fruit tree. So once I get past getting a decent stem, I'll have to research on what the next step is, because I just don't know what it is. So besides the last one that we'll look at, which I'm really not sure of, this I think is my only other success story so far for this year. So you can see this is a pretty large tree that I cut off, and had V'd there, and I decided to do both of them. But I think in the end I may let 2 stems grow, or just one, I'm not sure. This one obviously did not take, but this still seems to be moist, firm, I guess, not dry and withered. Same with this one. In fact, that bud there is still flexible and green. Interesting. Anyhow, so these have taken off real well. The original Scion is right there. So everything above here is new growth in the last, really 2 months. This one was sort of a late bloomer. I think this one took 3, maybe 4 weeks before the buds came out after I attached the Scion. So let's look at the last one, which started out promising. But I think there was some indication that it was not going to take. Another failure. Well, so far, but it's just that one. It'll be interesting. I mean, obviously I'll know the success of those before the end of the year. So let's just look at the last one and we'll wrap this up. So this, I think, is the last one we'll look at. So this one obviously has died. This one looks like it's on its way out, but it's still kicking. So we'll see what happens with that one, but probably better than 50% chances of failure. Actually, I said that was the last one. This one here, well, there's 2 more, but I wasn't going to look at every one, but I think we've almost looked at every one. Question mark failure, but I don't know. I mean, that looks good. That's a nice healthy leaf. It just is not emerged yet. So this one here, okay, from a distance I thought maybe I was having some success, but no, when you cut the stem off, because that encourages the tree to grow dormant sprouts that are just sort of lying and waiting underneath the bark. Nothing's happening with these. The very first one we looked at was one similar to that. It was one I did 2 years ago. It failed, but it grew up a nice stem, and it was this stem that grew up that I grafted the Scion to, and that looks really good. So really that's it. Granted, this was 3 months in the making. Probably only took you 30, maybe 40 minutes. I don't know how long it'll be to watch, but I appreciate every minute of you watching. Thanks, and until we meet again, stay tuned for some other stuff, whether it be grafting, excavation, forestry, repairs, building, who knows what. If you like this content, I'd invite you to subscribe and enjoy other stuff that I do. So thanks for watching this one. I appreciate it.